Okay.
Aloha and welcome to our preseason week 3 preview episode of Ohana Packers Edition podcast. Joe and we're going back to old familiars, and Joe, let's hope let's hope that the Packers can get to back to familiar success this week against the Ravens in the preseason after that absolute snooze fest. And I gotta tell you, the pick that you used, that you photoshopped me onto, was an absolute banger in terms of how spot on it was for our takeaways from the games. One freaking hit, but two stinking points.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm hearing all over the place all this crap about it, and I get it, but it's only the preseason. I mean, it would be different if we were sitting in week 3 and they only put up 2 friggin' points. But I mean, I understand that. Well, you want them to look a little bit strong and look a little bit more prepared. But I still go back to the year the Lions went 0-16. They were undefeated in the preseason.
Yep. And, like, it would be one thing if it was all the starters that played and they got their asses kicked. But the fact that it was backups and, reserve guys, that, yes, we want to see them play better. But yeah, it's a deal, but it's not the biggest deal. I think that's the most healthy way to look at this past week's game, because yeah, you don't want to get too high, too low off of one preseason game. But yeah, it's like we said, it was rough to watch, but also the circumstances kind of bore out what you were going to get out of that game. So, but we're here to
And
talk about week 3 coming up. We've given our thoughts and spoken our piece about week 2, and the Packers have also made a handful of moves. The biggest one this week is they have designated Alex Hale as their new their IPP player. And I know that one of those P's is player in the in the acronym, but like,
yeah,
they've given him the IPP designation. Unfortunately, that means that Kenneth Odomegu's venture to the NFL with the Packers has come to an end. But I think this is a good move. Hale has potential, and I like the fact that they have, for all intents and purposes, they've locked in at least some backup option at kicker that you don't have to worry about getting him through waivers and stuff like that.
I'm still confused about what the IPP stuff is, because I understand it when it came with Odumegwu, because he was from he came from Nigeria. He was going through the programs, and I understand why they made the move with him, because he is at a little bit of an older age and he's only played football since coming to with the Packers. He hasn't been, but from what I understand, it Alex Hale played college ball.
This is the fine print. This is Gutekunst using the fine print definition of the IPP to stash Hale as their internet. Well, I can't even quote marks air quote it, because I mean he is an Aussie, but yeah, it's
Right, he's from Australia, but I'd have to look it up again. But he played what, 4 years in
yeah.
college, and he made like second team All American or All Conference or some shit like that. So he's played American football in the United States, but he's getting the IPP designation. So, like I said, I'm all confused about it. I know he has not been performing well in practices. They haven't given him quite the shot in the preseason as of yet. But I mean, I guess it's a. I understand why you made a move and got and released Odomegwu, because, like I said, he's an older age. He may have potential, but how long down the line is it going to take for him to reach that potential? And it's just, he's not going to be able to do it with the Packers, because they've already got enough guys there, that trying to find him a spot compared to, okay, well, we're worried about our kicker competition. even though, like I said, they're saying Hale hasn't really been performing well in practices. I think he missed 3 of them just today's practice. So it's an interesting thing. I'm still going to be confused about this whole IPP thing, but it is what it is.
Yeah, so just doing some quick Wikipedia, the must meet. Yeah, they, even Wikipedia goes. Some of the criteria have changed over time, and there is some discretion applied during the selection process, as not all the athletes that have come through the program in intervening years meet all of the following criteria. So there's 24 or younger, out of high school for 4 years. This third one is the one you're talking about. Did not play American football at a U.S. college.
Right.
Doesn't get much more American than Oklahoma State. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, I think he does fit all these other ones, because pretty sure he's 24 under, definitely 4 years out of high school,
He's
has the ability to
26.
speak English, and he's not a citizen of the US or Canada. So, yeah.
Canada. Mike can't talk tonight.
Oh no, I always say Canada. That's
Oh,
a
but
TV, and that's the function of watching too much TV throughout your life. So,
but he's 26.
oh, I lied. See, I don't even know how old
Yeah.
he is. Oh, I should have known. The Aussies are always old when they come through college. That's right.
He's a 2-time Lou Groza Award semifinalist. Earned second team All Big 12 honors in 2023. He really didn't have that great of a college career. He finished his college career 43 of 54 on field goal attempts to give him the 5th highest field goal percentage in school history. That's not amazing.
No, it's like I think, and we'll move on from this pretty quick. But I do think the one point that you brought up that might have some legs to it is the fact that he is an Aussie, and Aussies are good at kind of that squib directional punting stuff and kicking action. So does that favor Green Bay doing some funky stuff with him as like their kickoff guy? If he somehow beats out Anders, or Anders just completely, craps the bed this season, and they're like, okay, we just can't keep going with Anders at this point, and we've just got to try something else. So, yeah, I think
here's one for you, and I know you want to move on to the next thing, but I got to think, somebody mentioned something about doing this with Anders, and I just don't see them being able to do this. But what if they let Anders onto the 53, they keep Hale as the IPP on the practice squad, and then they bring him up 3 times, and then they continue to do that with different kickers throughout the year. So if Anders has a bad set, then they can just, because they're pretty notorious about stashing at least one kicker onto the practice squad. I don't think it's going to be Joseph, because Joseph had another terrible day today, and he's kicking worse than Anders is right now. But I think
Anders is kind of, I know he hasn't pulled away because he was like slightly behind Joseph from last week, but I think they're at best dead even, or Anders is like slightly ahead in terms of the overall count. So,
well, was it Andy Herman that put out the kicking percentage?
Yeah, I missed today's one, so I'm not totally up to date on it.
I think he said that Anders is currently at like 81%. Joseph is at, here we go. Anders is 54 or 67 for for training camp at 80.6%. Joseph is 54 or 69 for 78.3%, and Alex Hale is 14 of 21 for 66.7%. So Anders is slowly starting to pull it away. Just in today's practice, Joseph was 2 for 5, Hale was 3 for 5, and Carlson was 4 for 5.
Yeah.
So I would say Anders is really kind of pulling away from Joseph. Now, that doesn't stop him from bringing in somebody later on or whatever. And like I said, maybe they stash one of them on the practice squad, and they do that. They just use their 3 or 4 call-ups for, however long. And the minute that Anders shows any kind of regression, they just, all right, you're done. We'll put this guy in there.
Yep. So still a long way to go with that, but it does look like, this move shows that Goot is thinking outside the box in how to kind of bolster the kicking situation. But the big roster news, Henry Pearson is back on the 90-man roster, and Joe is absolutely ecstatic.
Well, I really did already predict it. I said he was going to be back for the practice squad.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's just back a little bit earlier than what I figured he was going to be, but it makes
It's one of those,
sense.
they know what he is, and I mean that in a good way. Like, they know the kind of player he is, that he's obviously reliable enough that he can be cut 2 times already in the same preseason and kept being brought back and stuff. And
He's at a position that a lot of teams aren't using right now.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? I think the 49ers and the Ravens are about the last 2 teams that actually use a fullback.
And like LaFleur would be the third, that if he had his way, he would like to have a guy that would be a, more of a designated fullback. I know that in theory there are times where he'd like Tucker and Sims to be, kind of amoeba in terms of being able to flow between that fullback and a tight end position. But I do think LaFleur would prefer to have like a true fullback type in his offense. And I've always liked the way Pearson plays. I don't think he's necessarily special, but from the limited like preseason snaps we've seen of him, he seems like a steady guy, reliable. He blocks well, blocks better than Tyler Davis and Joel Wilson do. And like, I think it speaks more to those 2 guys just not doing anything with any opportunities they had on Sunday than anything else. So, but in all honesty, I'm glad that he's back, because it helps potentially push some of those guys who aren't really worthy of 53-man spots off the roster. So any competition is good competition, and it's good to have Pearson back, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm really hoping he does stick 53, just because that would mean a guy like Tyler Davis isn't going to make the roster. I really don't think Wilson will make the initial 53, but I think if he passes through waivers, that he'll end up on the practice squad and maybe an eventual call-up. Or, next year they bring him in and give him a full-time chance. Because, I mean, I like Sims, but I think he's really kind of limited in what he can do. He's going to be more the Mercedes Lewis type.
Yeah.
That he's going to block and maybe occasionally make a catch or 2.
Yeah.
And then your stalwarts are going to be Musgrave and Kraft. And I hope that, and we talked about this a lot last year when they were struggling with Kraft, that they don't rely on him as like a pure blocker. They need to make him into a Kittle or a Hawkinson or that type of, or maybe like a Tony Gonzalez type, where he can block and he can receive.
And I think it goes hand in hand where, what was really hurting him last year is like he wasn't blocking good to start the season, but then he also wasn't getting any like pat on the back, like check down routes or anything. And so it was just like all his film study is just like, you're getting your ass kicked and everything sucks kind of thing. And so it's like,
for a young player, really that never helps. Coming out. That was really never his game coming out. He was, like I said, he was the Gronkowski.
Yeah.
He was where he could throw a block, but it was more like a chip block to go out and make the play. He was a playmaker. And then when it was, they tried to make Musgraves the focus and just use him as the blocker, it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
But then once they started giving him the playmaking of time, he really started shining on it.
Yeah. So, looping that all back, 44 is retaken on the roster. Henry Pearson is back. And
at least it wasn't Bowden again.
No. I'm going to go snap for someone else. But other updates, lot of return to practice, couple big ones. Jordan Morgan, Edge Cooper both returned, but mostly for individual drills. I know LaFleur was kind of mum on where those two's progress is at. He sounded a little more optimistic about Jordan potentially getting into the game on Saturday, but even that sounded like a bit of a stretch. Preston came back from an illness, but I doubt he plays on Saturday. We'll get into that in a little bit. The two kind of bummer, the irony of it is it's like they're the two guys who are kind of battling for the same spot is Marshawn Lloyd and AJ Dillon both still out for practice today. And Not that, and as much as a lot of people were like, "Oh, Dylan's like really in trouble," it would have been a lot to expect a third round running back, any third round running back, to come in and just take a spot from Dylan, who I know, he's not off to the greatest start this preseason. I know that, he has a lot of his warts and stuff, but he is a guy that they do trust to know the offense in and out and stuff. That's a big task to overcome for a rookie who's, got to prove himself in pass pro, prove that he's not a fumbler, as, kind of is a little bit of his scouting, that's a little bit of his scouting card. But it's a bummer to not see Lloyd other than like 5 plays against Cleveland. So, and I know that I think it was either Paul Brettel or Robin who wrote an article about how Lloyd is a guy who they changed the IR rules so you can have I think it's either 2 or 3 guys that you put on IR before final cuts, and they can be designated to return still during the regular season. So that is sort of an option for Lloyd, especially, and it's so hard to tell because it's preseason and LaFleur is especially guarded about injury news, even though he already
and
is
I guess
pretty.
it just right,
Yeah.
and I guess it just depends on what is it like old IR where he has to be out for like 6 weeks before he
I think
can
4 weeks
return?
or whatever. Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. So yeah.
So
So
that'll make a difference on that decision, because if he's a
yeah,
little bit closer, then maybe you just let him ride it out with him. But if he's going to be down for a bit, then maybe use that. I don't think it's serious enough for a pup visit, because
no.
that would
Yeah,
mean he is definitely out for 6 weeks.
yeah,
So but I know, I have to say, I have not been an AJ Dillon supporter for a long time. Not because he's a bad guy or anything. He's just not been able to live up to that big
yeah.
body running back that we expected out of him. I don't. He's. I don't think this injury is helping him, because
No.
he's not being able to get out there to win the job per se. Because the contract that they gave him for this year alone tells me that this is his final shot
Yeah.
to make something out of it, and being injured isn't going to help him. Not
And
that he
especially because it's
has,
a stinger too.
yeah,
It'd be one. Not that you wish it was like something like a lower body thing or anything, but the fact is he's supposed to be like a physical runner, and if you got a stinger, you like trust me, you're gonna shy away from contact. If like I don't know which side, but let's say it's his right side, it's like
I want to say they said it was the same one he had last
yeah,
year.
it was I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, it's like trust me, especially if it's a recurring one, you're gonna you make mental notes of that, and you as someone who's dealt with it, you know exactly what the movement or contact or shock is that gives you that irritates the nerve as much as it does, and you consciously or subconsciously you react before you think you're reacting to it. But hopefully they're managing it well, and it's something that'll be alleviated prior to the trip to Brazil. But that's those are the big names. There's some other smaller names, like I think Keyshawn Banks came back and stuff, but no one else who's really expected to make the roster was missing time and stuff. So we'll dovetail this in. Joe, do the starters start this week?
I don't think all of them will. I think there'll be a select few of them that will get some starting time. Maybe a couple of the receivers, just
Yeah,
to get them a little bit into the groove, since there's not that.
got to get Wicks more snaps to justify his being on the roster, right?
Right. But no, now that they don't have the fourth game and they have that bye week between game 3 and the week 1 of the season, this gives them a little bit of game action to go out, get some of the rust knocked off, and prepare for the following week. So I'm not going to say they're going to play the whole game.
Yeah,
Like I've talked before, the old way of doing it was you had 4 games. The first game, the starters saw maybe a drive or two. The second game, they got a quarter. The third game, they got a half, and then the fourth game, they didn't play at all.
yeah. And
Whereas
so
now you can't really do that. So I think some of them. I think if Jordan Morgan can go, he's definitely going to see a lot of playing time. So he's potentially the starting right guard
Yeah.
on
Of the
paper
O
right now.
line, I think the only two guys who probably won't, like I would say, are most likely not to play are Myers and Elton. I think with Rashid and Tom, it's a very interesting dichotomy with the two of them for different reasons. Like Rashid, I still don't think he's played 1,000 snaps, and so like whatever whatever experience you can get him is always good. And then on the other side, Tom has missed most of training camp because he's been rehabbing from the torn
Yeah.
pec kind of thing. But at the same time, as we saw last week, they do not have tackles behind those two, so it's that kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't, where it's like you want to get both of them reps. Rashid just to get more experience, Zach to get his timing and knock the rust off from the time that he's missed with the rehab. But at the same time, it's like you don't want him to go and bolo an ankle or something like that in a quote unquote meaningless preseason game, because then it's like, well, crap. Now what? So
851.
yes, I can still get something right off the seat of my pants, but but
And
yeah,
that might
so
not even be including like preseason snaps.
right,
Either,
right,
so.
right. And then but then to go a further step, it's okay. Now your top line doesn't play, so it's your backup line again. We saw what happens when your backup line tries to block a starting front, and Emmanuel Wilson, who's trying to show that he does deserve a roster spot. I think, especially with the Dillon injury, the Lloyd injury, the questions that passed, the fact that it's Pearson fighting with Tyler Davis and Joel Wilson for like that fullback tight end 4 spot and stuff. It's kind of like, oh, okay, like Wilson, you think he kind of should be a relative or something, whatever the thing right
No,
below
he's
a
a
roster lock
Musgrave.
is. Yeah,
He's a Musgrave.
yeah, but it would help him. It would help his chances if he had better blocking in front of him. That he's not right after he gets the handoff. He's not getting hit in the backfield. Same for Pratt and Clifford. I don't, like you said, you and I, we're Big Ten fans. We know who Sean Clifford is. We've known who Sean Clifford is for 6 years at this point. And Pratt just isn't ready yet. He's just he's a little kid out there. So, but whatever top talent you can put around them would be beneficial for their, development. But so I do think LaFleur is weighing that, but at the same time, I do think push come to shove, he's going to say, I can't get my top O lineman hurt before, the games really count kind of thing. So, like you said, maybe a drive, depending how long the drive is. But yeah, I kind of get the feeling top O line is probably in bubble wrap. Watson and Dobbs are almost certainly in bubble wrap. And then I can't see Love playing if the top O line isn't playing. There's just I just don't see any way
Unless
that
he
you chance
goes
that.
in and tells LaFleur that I'm playing, I don't see them putting him out there for
Yeah.
nothing.
And even if he does that, I see LaFleur saying, haha, like the fire, but we're taking your helmet away. Like,
But like I said, I think if Morgan is full go, then
yeah,
he's going to get a good amount of snaps. Maybe maybe at least let Tom out there a little bit to get the
yeah,
rest knocked off, and then get him used to playing next to Morgan.
yeah.
And I think that would be about it. Yeah, I don't think Myers, although it kind of scares me because I really don't think Sean Ryan is that great of a candidate for backup center.
This will be a good test for it. As much as I'm not expecting a lot out of this backup O line, it is another good test for them because
It
I think
is.
it'll be good to see how they respond after getting their asses kicked for a whole game on Sunday. And this is a better D line that they're gonna go. I don't really care who suits up for the Ravens on Saturday. The Ravens have always had strong D line, so I'm I want to see who's able to bounce back, even if it's just on instinct they're fighting their way through it as opposed to like really knowing what they're doing. So yeah, that's that's my key on offense, because I think Wilson, QB2, the wide receivers 4 through 6, that's all going to be based off of how whoever lines up as the 5 guys on the O line play. So want to see those guys kind of persevere and fight through.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got what are we looking for in this game, and we just talked about the OL. Yeah, Wilson, but really it sounds like he's not having too much of a battle right now because half the
Yeah.
guys that he's supposed to
He's kind of
have
de
dropped
facto
out.
R2 at this point, and I'm comfortable with that. Are you comfortable with that? I am, honestly.
I wish we could see him behind the number one offense.
Right.
Because I think that would make me feel a little bit more comfortable. Because, and this is my thought process with it, and I could be completely wrong and be worrying. But when you're playing with a certain group, you learn their tendencies, and you can go around those tendencies. So he's been mainly playing with the 2s and 3s. So he's learned the tendencies of the 2s and 3s, but now if he gets thrown into a game with the 1s, is he going to be able to produce the same with the 1s as he would with the 2s and 3s? You would hope so, but he doesn't get to see those tendencies, like, okay, well, I know Tom is going to do this on this type of run.
And
so
no one's seen Tom that much this preseason either. So
right.
Yeah.
Or Rashid. I know Rashid's going to do this, and he's going to take out his guy going this way. So if I cut him this way,
on the ground.
Right. So I mean, I could be completely wrong with it because I'm not a big analyst of those things, but I would think just common sense tells me that he's used to being behind certain people, that it might throw him off, and that's why he might not.
Yeah.
Be great for the start, but
I know he didn't have a lot of opportunities, but we did to this point, we did see him produce a little better as the season went along. Like,
yeah,
he kind of like was scuffling when, and it was hard for him to get reps early in the season, but
and then he got hurt.
Partly due to there was no one else, but in those 2 playoff games, you did see him produce to a decent degree, and it was enough behind Aaron Jones, who was having a very good playoff. So that's the hope, is that you just lean on Jacobs to open the season. Love gets off to a good start, and your RB2 is it's a acceptable placeholder spot more than it is like a crutch that you really need to lean on and all. But
and to say again, like the kicker competition, RB2 might not even be on the roster right now.
That's true.
I mean, there could be a guy that a kind of a bigger name guy that gets cut at some point during the 53-man reduction that they say, okay, well, he's going to do us better, and Mike's knocking shit over there. This guy over here could be better than what Dylan's going to give us, so we're going to cut loose on Dylan, put Lloyd on IR for now, bring this other guy in, and we'll run with him and Emmanuel Wilson as our backups.
Yep. So, I mean, as of Tuesday, Green Bay is going to cut down, and other teams, they almost always do start right after the final preseason games end. So,
Packers always wait last minute, though.
Yep, I know, and because usually
I've already been talking with my buddy Wes that maybe we need to just go sit over there all day Tuesday and see what the action's going to be.
And ask Wes Hod to just drop pieces of paper out the window. But yeah, I think that, fortunately or unfortunately, a bunch of these things are going to kind of sort themselves out. The kicking competition, we'll see if they can just get in range. And like I said, honestly, I would not be mad at LaFleur. Obviously, you want to see your team score touchdowns and stuff, but if he just calls stupid shit after he gets into field goal range and basically sets it up where each of Joseph and Anders get like 2 or 3 45 to 55-yard field goal attempts, I think that would be one of the best uses of preseason that you could have, like based on what the Green Bay Packers need to find out this preseason. I know some people would complain and some people are like, what is that? But I would be completely satisfied and almost proud of LaFleur to go to that distance. Fuck it, LaFleur, kick it on 3rd down, like just to show how important this kicking competition is. So yeah, I know he wouldn't because you got to give the other guy, those other reserve players, a fair shake at it. But like that's how important I do think figuring this kicking situation out is. Linebackers, that's the one position where just because I have no idea how many they plan to carry this season because you've been in a 3-4 for over a decade and you only really need 4, and now you're going back to a 4-3. So it's like, do you go to 5? Do you go to 6? But you also need a lot of guys in your D-line rotation, and you get into the numbers, you're still going to carry the same number of DBs in that 10 to 11 range. And so it's like, are you stealing from Peter to pay Paul kind of thing and stuff. But I do think, I'm going to tell you this, I do think your Hawkeye deserves to make the final roster. I don't know if it's a lock.
You know what was really pissing me off during the game, though? Is when he would do something, they would call him the Wisconsin native. It's like, you motherfucker, he was a Hawkeye.
Who recruited him? Who recruited him and gave him a spot?
But I was just going to say that I think really what the linebacking battle will come down to is just between Eric Wilson and Christian Welch. I know they have a couple other guys on there.
Goldfirth and stuff.
Yeah, and there was the other guy that they just signed that was teammates with Cooper.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to look at the roster right now because I know there's a few of them that I'm not even going to remember off the top of my head. But I really think that battle will decide who's on the practice squad, or those battles will decide who's on the practice squad.
Yeah.
But I think the main battle is going to come down to Wilson and Welch just to decide who's on the roster because I don't think they're going to keep both.
Yeah.
I mean, they could, but I
think it would take an injury somewhere else. Like one of those, like, oh, they've got, like, let's say, like, they, for whatever reason, they're like, we're only keeping 8 linemen. They're not going to do that. They'll keep worse linemen over other positions because there's no way they're going into the season with that. But if they were to go short at another position, they might say, like, and this is where, our associate head coach might bang the table and just say, like, hey, I need more guys. I need more dudes for special teams. So if Bisaccia walks in and just says, like, nope, I want both these guys, like, and
that could happen too.
Yeah.
But I mean, right now I'm looking at it. There's 9 linebackers right now. You got Cooper and McDuffie and Walker and most likely Hopper that are definitely on the roster.
Yeah.
But then you've got Goforth, Chris Russell, who's the guy that I was just talking about. That is he played with
was
Cooper.
Edge's teammate. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got Welch, Wilson, and Christian Young. I think Young spent a little bit of time on the practice squad last season.
Yeah.
So really, like I said, you've already got 4 guys that you're most likely are going to make the roster no matter what. In Hopper, Edge, Walker, and McDuffie. So then you just got a battle behind that. And I think your first tier battle is Welch and Wilson, and then your second tier will come down to Goforth, Russell, and Young.
Yeah.
And I think Russell's kind of got it is hindered a little bit because he came along too late into training camp. The only thing that'll help him is he was Cooper's teammate, and maybe they can get like a Bash brother situation going on, and they'll play off each other.
Yep.
And then your last one is the young DBs. I think it's the same situation. I think everything is already, unless something comes up and they decide to trade like Eric Stokes.
Right.
I don't think he'll be a cut candidate, but it could come up to, all right, we're going to trade Stokes for this guy over here and hope a change of scenery helps both of them, even though I think Stokes has played decently in training camp. But it's really going to come down to, okay, we know Jair, we know Carrington, we're pretty sure Keyshawn and Stokes are there. That's going to leave King, who is a draft pick, Ballantyne, who stepped up last year, but is he going to be able to continue that into this year? And I think there's one or two I'm missing, but
I was pretty surprised that Ballantyne was inactive last week. Like, I was pleasantly surprised that he didn't suit up for the game against Denver last week.
All right, so there's a few other ones like L.J. Davis, Robert Rochelle, and Jermon Green.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's all set. It's just a lot of those will be battling for. I think the big question is, do you keep Ballantyne or do you keep King?
Yeah.
So I really, that's about the only thing, because the other guys will just be battling for practice squad and audition for other teams.
Yep. So it's a lot of we'll see, because I mean, teams are always going to play it bum on who's going to play and who won't play in the preseason, but that's what kind of makes it exciting, because different guys are going to get their opportunity and hopefully they make the most of it. And for the love of God, play anyone else at guard but Royce Newman. We know what that is already. Like, just
I'd like to see Glover get a shot at guard. Have that massive man in there.
Do anything else. Like, that's the thing, is let Lecitus Smith play center and play like someone else.
Well, he was playing center towards the end of the game in Denver.
Yeah. After Monk
and
played
he
center,
wasn't.
so yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't looking too good.
Still better than Newman, but
well, like I said, I would give Glover and Caleb Jones a shot inside, because they're both mounting them in. They're going to be more road graders at the guard position than they are at the tackle position. Go for it.
Yep. We shall see, but that's going to do it. Where it's pretty much, like I said, we can prognosticate all we want, but there's only 60 minutes in the game, and there's 90 dudes on. They're probably going to have a long inactive list like we did for last week's Sunday's game. So these bottom of the roster guys are going to get their opportunity, and it's a job interview for all 32 teams to hopefully find one of those 53-man spots or one of those 16 practice squad spots for all these guys. But we plan to have programming for you guys next week. We are still between the two of us figuring out when, how that's gonna happen. But Joe is making, as he kind of alluded to, he's making his way up to Green Bay this weekend. Hopefully he won't have to speed racer it to make it in time for the game.
I won't be going to the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No. I won't be going to the game. Because when I set my vacation plans up, they hadn't set the preseason schedule up yet.
We
knew who was playing, but we didn't know when. Otherwise, I would have set it up for tomorrow. That way I wouldn't be traveling to Green Bay on game day. But yes, I will be up in Green Bay for about a week. So if you see me around wearing my Hawkeye hat around Lambeau, then that's me.
The only one.
just don't hit me. I really don't want to be hit. But
that's okay. Versace will back you up.
Well, hopefully I have my bodyguard when I'm up there, so you don't want to mess with him. But yeah, if you see me around, just stop and talk. Say hey, talk Packers. Because I will probably spend most of my time at Lambeau doing something.
Right on. But like I said, that's gonna do it for us. If you're around Lambeau or the practice facility, really the next 5 days after this comes out, find Joe, say hi, take pictures. Joe, what else?
I guess if you want to take pictures, I mean.
No,
if you want to boost my ego, you can say you actually listen to the show.
Yeah,
that would completely boost
if you're past the 35th person, because the 36 is my wife, Joe will know that one of you is lying at least. But we appreciate you guys tuning in and following us all the time. Check out the website ohanapackers.org. You can get all of our blog posts. Carlos at our writers are stepping their game up. They're increasing their output as we get into the regular season. Streams of our shows and Cheese Talk is on there. Merch. Please get merch. Support Joe's ability to go to Green Bay more often.
Yeah,
as
more money. We need money.
He keeps getting bent further over the barrel to fix his car at this point. So please buy more merch for Joe.
We need merch, or we need money.
Car needs merch. Please follow the show on Twitter at Ohana_Packers. To be eligible for our drawings, to see all of our polls, and I am gonna try and get back to doing pregame spaces. I was doing them early in last season, but kind of fell off as the season went along. But I will try to be doing those on a more regular basis, probably starting about an hour before kickoff. But we'll iron that out as we get closer to the regular season. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like and a subscribe. But positive or negative, please give us your commentary feedback, because we want to be producing the content you're looking for. The Packers they are going to close out their preseason against the Ravens this Saturday. Follow us at Ohana Packers as we will recap and get us ready for 53-man cutdown. We'll go into our season preview, and we're going to have all of that coming to you on OPE Network. Go Pack Go, and Aloha!